On today's show, we're going to talk about how the Dallas Mavericks are different this year heading into the playoffs. Are they better equipped than ever to finally reach their goal and win a first-round series? We're going to talk about that today and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good!
And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by NBA Top Shot. NBA Top Shot is the future of being an NBA fan. Own officially licensed rare NFTs of the greatest moments from NBA history. Sign up today at lockedon.nbatopshot.com. Got our own URL. How about that? Joining me for the first time, friend of the show, and just serial basketball watcher, Twitter user, always tweeting about basketball. And I just kept seeing her on Twitter, saw she was doing her own show, and I was like, I gotta have her on and just see what she's like. SJ, at SJ Basketball 8 on Twitter, also 21 Going on 77 podcast. SJ, what you got for me today?
Hello, Nick. Thank you for inviting me on. It's great to be here. Yes, I'm excited to be here.
Tell me where the love for basketball came, because I think that of the people that I follow like 2,000 accounts or something, most of them basketball. You may tweet about basketball more. It's you and like Mavs Draft, which is Richard, tweet like every time I see you guys tweet, you're watching a game. Where did the love of basketball come for you?
So it's a bit of a kind of funny story if you look at it that way. But I was like 10 and I had a crush. And my crush happened to really like basketball.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, okay, I will try to, get into basketball as well. We're a Heat fan. So at the time, this was when LeBron had, because spoiler, I'm young. So I'm a bit on the young side. So I'm only 22. So I was like, this is only, 10
Wow, you
years
just hurt
ago.
my feelings when you just said it like that. You're like, hey, just to let you know, I'm younger than you. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I
I'm
get
just
it.
saying, just to put that out there.
I'm
But,
on just for you
yes.
olds out there, I'm younger.
Yeah, for you fossils, but no, yeah. So basically, I tried to get into it, and this was during when the Heatles were just formed and our championship season. So I saw a video of Dirk, like a highlight video on YouTube, when I was trying to do my homework, and basically I just fell in love with just how he played and just the game from watching him. So he kind of just, grew my love for the game. And
10-year-old SJ just saw a highlight video of Dirk doing just the one-legged fade and getting in the lane. And
literally like this, who's this white guy? Because I honestly, it might sound so bad, but like I wasn't really, because I grew up in Jamaica, so white people, I didn't really see them every day, so in my head, I'm, thinking like, wow, like white guys are really good, in the NBA. Like,
yeah, right.
It was like that's a thing. Like I didn't know, young little, ignorant me. But yeah, he just captivated me right off rip. And from there I kind of just like watching the game, like Mavericks basketball and specifically, but just love the game.
Yeah. 10-year-old me said the same thing when I saw Dirk play for the first time. 10-year-old white me was like, oh, dang, we can play basketball too.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's get into this season, because the Mavericks are different this year, right? This Dallas Mavericks team is different than the teams that they've thrown out there in the past. I was just going back and looking up the starting lineup against the Clippers in the playoffs last year. It's like Luka, Dorian, Tim Hardaway, Maxey for 4 games. Porzingis actually played all 7 games, if you forget that. And then Boban started 3 games. I totally had blanked out of my head that Boban had played 3 games.
What times?
Like that was the team that the Mavs threw out there last year. Now it looks completely different. So we're going to talk about 2 things. We're going to talk about the Mavs roster this year, how it's different, and the opponents the Mavs could face, because it's not going to be the Clippers again. Thank the Lord, right? The Mavs don't have to play that Clippers team.
I'm so excited.
SJ, how do we think Luka is different heading into the playoffs this year than he has been in the past?
So my thing with Luca, and I'm watching out for it down the stretch here because it's hard to say that it's hard to pick out a pattern with him because he's only in year 4,
Yeah.
and things have been so weird the past couple seasons with season getting shut down, restart. Last season was the shortened season, so it's like how can you really kind of make a conclusion that something's a pattern when all these variations are going on. However, down the stretch of the season, it's like he's running on fumes and he just looks bad and you're worried for the playoffs. And he's just a brand new person. It happened last year. I was so worried down the stretch. He just looked tired. And I'm like, is he going to be able to do this? And, as we saw, it was, a mixed bag. You could talk about the fourth quarters, but he was amazing. So I think we'll kind of see, I hope not, but I think we'll maybe kind of see the same thing where down the stretch, he looks a little gimpy, but he'll come out guns blazing. So I think we're gonna see gaudy numbers again because he's just that type of person. He's a big game player. And when the stakes are there, he's going to show up. And if I'm looking at the potential matchups, I know we'll get into that later, but if I'm looking at the potential matchups, there's no one I'm concerned about in terms of putting him in a straitjacket for a 7-game series. Like,
And if there would have been anybody, it would have been those Clippers teams the last 2 years, and they didn't even
exactly.
do that, right?
And that didn't happen. So with that being said, I think we're going to see just another great performance from him. And he'll probably look even better than last year. Just because as much as people think he's stagnated in terms of his game, especially coming into the season, it was like a lot of ups and downs. But I think he's gotten a little better, like just sheer experience, another year of playing. I think he's picked up, more things just IQ wise. So I think he'll be better prepared in the playoffs, just based off these last 2 playoffs playing against, those Clippers teams.
Yeah, you look at the last 8 games of last season. He played 8 games. The Mavs actually went 6-2 in those last 8 games. He played 27.8 minutes. He only scored 21 points. He was shooting just over 40% from the field, only 6.5 assists and 4 turnovers. And so you're like, yeah, those are not Luka numbers at the end of the season. And it did feel like that last year where he was just dragging at the end. And he kind of, the last couple of games, it felt like he was dragging a little bit. That Minnesota game, you could just tell he was kind of in it. But I sit at the games and I bring my binoculars and sometimes I just watch Luka between possessions and you just see like on his face, like, okay, we're doing this. It's okay. I'm playing basketball. This little short guy is just running around and like biting my ankles all game. And I just got to deal with it and just get through it. And so then, like, when he brushed off Patrick Beverley at the end of that game, I just felt like it was everything about him that was tired from, being from this whole season and everything that he's had to deal with, just like brush him off, like, just get away. I need a break. And then he took the break against the Rockets, and now here we are. So I think it's a different Luka, like you said. He's even mentioned things like he's working on the right step back. He's, the mid-range stuff he's added over the last couple of years. He can bring that back out in the playoffs. I think all that is just going to be in his favor. He's definitely better defensively this year, scheme-wise, and then also I think just individually better. The other big change the Mavericks made this year, I guess Luka was the same, but the one big change the Mavs have made this year is Dinwiddie for Kristaps Porzingis, right? That's the hugest, biggerest, massivest change that they've made. How is that going to be different for the Mavs this year?
So that, first of all, is just a huge difference. Like you said, biggest difference.
But, trying to make up as many words as I can.
Yeah, but just looking at another thing that's underrated, like you swapped out positions without, replacing them, essentially. So you traded your starting center, you got back a bench point guard. Like saying that out loud sounds a bit crazy, but when you see the results like on the court, you understand why it had to be done. And obviously there's other factors as to why it had to be done anyway. But in the playoffs, to me, shot creation is vital.
Huge.
And you saw that last season where Porzingis was able to be taken out of a series. Like, whatever the opinions are about how he was used or not, the point to me is if he was able to create his own shot effectively and consistently, there is no way we would have been having this conversation about how he would have been used, because players who are good shot creators, they will figure it out. He was taken out of a series, like point blank, because he in part cannot create his own shot. So the fact that we swapped him out for someone that can do that, and that's a big that has been a big question mark about the Mavs. It's like, okay, Luka can do a lot and we've seen him do a lot, but who can help, like when he can't do everything? Now we have guys that can with Dinwiddie. He's been great. I mean, Bertans, he's
okay.
hurt right now.
You don't have to mention him. Okay.
We don't have to mention him. I felt bad. We were talking about Dinwiddie. Like I forgot for a moment he was in the deal too. But
it's okay.
Yeah, but he might, have a heater for us at some weird like game 3. Bertans has like go 6 for 8 or something.
When people try to draw the lines between this team and the 2011 team, like he's the pager. Maybe he plays maybe he'll play in a game and he'll like go off. But we'll see. But so we'll talk a little bit more about Spencer Dinwiddie. We'll also break down the rest of the roster. Jalen Brunson, how is he different from the Jalen Brunson the Mavs used to have? Also, no Tim Hardaway Jr., but you're adding in Reggie Bullock. How does that change for the Mavericks in the playoffs? We'll talk about all that and more coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Bet Online. For the latest odds, contests, player props, betonline.net is your #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. Go check it out. Right now, they got NCAA tournament. Are you locked into the NCAA tournament? I feel like I just see you talk about the NBA.
Yeah, no, college basketball is hard for me to get into.
I don't blame you. But if you're into college basketball, like Isaac, who loves North Carolina, they're a 2-point underdog against UCLA. St. Peter's, the Cinderella team with Doug,
I've seen
with
them.
Doug and his mustache. St. Peter's is a 12.5-point underdog against Purdue. I'm all the way for St. Peter's. I hope they make it all the way. If you feel like me, go ahead and put some money down on St. Peter's. Check it out. It's all on BetOnline. Head to the website. Use your mobile device today to learn more about the trends and actions. It's BetOnline, where the game starts and don't end. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. All right, SJ, let's keep talking about how the Mavs roster is different this year going into the playoffs than it has been in the past. So the Spencer Dinwiddie switch, like you said, that is such a huge fundamental change, because for a lot of the season, and especially in the playoffs, you're trying to force feed Porzingis and trying to set him up. And it got to the point last year where, Carlisle had to put just KP in the corner. And I don't think they're going to have to do that with Spencer Dinwiddie. Or if they do, it'll be a little more effective, because then he can catch the ball off a swing pass and he can drive into the lane and he can finish something. And that's just different overall. Defensively, that change is different as well. Now, you don't have somebody around the rim like KP, but if you remember KP in the playoffs last year, he was not the defensive player that we saw him this year. Like, it would have been nice to have KP, the KP from this season to play defense, but he wasn't there last year, and the Mavs almost won that first round series. Adding Dinwiddie has not hurt the defense so far. He just seems to be like an average defensive player. Like, he's not going to be able to take Harden. Right? It was very, very clear against Philadelphia that he wasn't. But what Dinwiddie has added has changed the team a lot, and I think it's made it better because, like you said, shot making is key.
Yeah, I completely agree. And with Porzingis, the piece that you talked about, his rim protection. I mean, Paul George said in the middle of the series that we had no rim protection. I thought that was so disrespectful. I actually felt a little bad for KP, because I'm like, wow, like they just do not respect you in that moment. And we know, he wasn't 100% healthy. So, you got to add that piece to it too.
What was the amount of time difference between when Paul George said the Mavs have no rim protection with KP and when Anthony Edwards said that Porzingis was the best rim protector in the league, even over Gobert? You remember those quotes?
Yes, is that like 6 months? Yes, the first healthy offseason was the time frame. I'd say that time gap.
I did take a drink. I did take a drink when you said that.
Yes, his first healthy offseason. But he just was not healthy and it just wouldn't work. But like you said, defensively, what's different is, and I always thought, like, even last year, like, our defensive rating was bad. In general, we couldn't defend, but there were glimpses of the team being able to defend. I feel like, especially last season, like the beginning of the year, I don't know if people remember, we were like 4th for a cute 2 weeks. Like it was 2 weeks, but we were like fourth in rating. I know you can point to a lot of factors for that, but it looked okay from the eye test. It looked decent, and then things cratered from there. Especially when Porzingis got back, and he wasn't healthy. We kind of nosedived, but there was a good defensive team in there. But to me, the schemes that were being used didn't maximize that. And I know much has been written about that now, and we see using different schemes helps the team out, especially with the personnel that you have. So I think I know the rim protection issue is an issue you can see in games, but if they're really locked in defensively, especially now that Porzingis is gone, we have a lot of versatility within our lineups that we can play like a Dorian at the 5 and have like just wing defenders surrounded our 3-guard lineup. So we can have a lineup of Luka, Brunson, Dinwiddie, Finney-Smith, Bullock. Like that's a tough lineup to guard, especially. So I just think we have a lot more options with this new kind of roster. And I'm hoping, the guys are able and willing to tackle all of this because we have a good shot at advancing.
Interesting that, like, if you look at the team that played in the playoffs last year, you're basically switching out Tim Hardaway for Reggie Bullock. That is a massive defensive upgrade, right? And Reggie Bullock is going to be big for this team. If he can hit threes, I don't think he's going to hit the way that Tim did in the playoffs last year. He was 40% on eight threes a game in the playoffs last year. I mean, he's not going to hit that, but if he can hit some threes and defend the way that he has, that's the 1-for-1 replacement. Porzingis was playing 33 minutes. By the way, Hardaway was playing 37 minutes a game in the playoffs last year. Porzingis last year, 33 minutes a game. Direct replacement, Spencer Dinwiddie, that's different. Maxi Kleber, 26 minutes. It's probably about the same. Boban was playing 20 minutes. I think Dwight Powell probably bumps up. He was only playing 7 minutes a game in the playoffs last year.
Oh, yeah, no. He'll take all those minutes.
He's taking all those. Brunson was only playing 16 minutes in the playoffs last year because, remember, the first 3 games he was playing really well, and then the last 4 he kind of got played off. And then Josh Richardson was playing 13 minutes a game. He was relegated that much amount of time. And I think his minutes will go to like Josh Green or somebody like that.
I was thinking Josh Green, yeah.
But I think that is such a big defensive change between the lineup last year and the lineup this year, because in the playoffs, one player makes such a big difference because they are playing 37, 35 minutes a game. Like, you're going to play those guys a lot. You're not holding out for anything anymore. And so, yeah, Dorian, Bullock, we kind of mentioned him. But Jalen Brunson played 16 minutes a game last year in the playoffs. He shot 45%, but he only scored like, what did he score? Where are his points? 8 points a game in the playoffs. The Mavs have to get more out of him, and he has to be playable. How do you think he's different heading into this year's playoffs?
So one thing I want to say first, there's no way he's scoring 8 points, per game in the playoffs again. Even if he has a poor showing, there's no way. Especially with him starting, I can't see a world where he doesn't average double digits. But with that being said, I just think Brunson has taken another step. Everyone's thinking about last season's playoffs. And, like you said, after the first 3 games, they were rough. They were rough. The fact that Trey Burke got priority over Brunson in a game 7, it told you all you need to know about his production there. But I just think he's a different player now. He took a leap. Like, I remember when I saw him in the first preseason game, I knew it was preseason. I know it's preseason, but he looked like he took a step. And I remember, thinking, and when I was watching him, that, hey, Brunson looks like he got better, and he was 24, turning 25, I think, at the time. So it's like, he's still young. Like, he's getting better as a player. So I have no doubt that he'll just be a better player. And I know there's a lot being said about, how Brunson scores against lengthier, defenders. And I get all that criticism, but at the same time, I don't think it's as bad as people think it is, honestly. Especially if Jalen is like locked in, like if he's out there, especially with Luka, and Luka's getting a lot of defenders. What Brunson does, one of the things Brunson does best to me is attack all the gaps that Luka creates. Especially if you put a Dinwiddie out there. And I think Brunson is kind of getting he's getting used to playing with, Luka and Dinwiddie now. I feel like the last couple games he's looked kind of weird, kind of not knowing what he wants to do with the ball, but I think he'll figure it out. He's a two-time, champion in college. Like he's a winning like he knows what it takes to win. And I know college, NBA level is different, but still, it's the same concept. It's the concept of winning. And I think Brunson's a winner. So I think he also internalized his playoff performance. He knows he didn't play, as well as he wanted to. So I think he has that in mind as well. So that when he goes into the playoffs, we're going to see an aggressive Brunson. We're going to see a Brunson that knows what time it is, essentially, because I know a lot of the guys, it's the same core, but like a lot of these guys, like the narrative after the playoffs, like it was a lot of narratives, but it was like Luka had no help. That, like, I know a lot of the guys on the team, that probably hurts their feelings a bit, or they don't like, hearing that they're no help, like, especially the ball handlers, the guards. So I think Brunson just has that all in his mind, and he's going to use that to kind of fuel his performance. So I'm riding with Brunson. I'm riding with him. And I think he's going to prove, the haters wrong and prove, folks like myself who believes in him right.
If you're watching on YouTube, and even if you're not, go to our YouTube channel and go watch our Media Day interview with Brunson. He specifically, just the way that he spoke about that Clipper series last year was telling to me, right? The things that you said that you saw in that first preseason game where you're like, oh, you saw him in person and you're like, okay, I see this guy. He's taking a leap. He's taking this next step. Brunson said, I said, hey, you played this many minutes in the first couple of games in the playoffs. You played this many minutes in the second, half of games in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on that? And what, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, we just got to be better. I have to be better. Can't get played off the floor. Got to be better. Got to take a step forward. And you could just tell, like, the look in his eye. Brunson is a really dry, sarcastic type of guy. He likes to, have fun. He throws jabs at people. He's always joking about Luka and all them. He was dead serious about that. Like, dead serious about what was in front of him and his goal of just being better and being able to play in those big moments. And I think that defensively, we have not seen him get picked on this year. We have not seen people try to hunt him down and say, hey, we're just going to go all out and take you out. You're the weak link in the lineup. And I think that's the biggest change, plus obviously the shot making and all that. Coming up, let's get into the opponents. You have spicy takes on Twitter. I'm excited to hear what you think about all these different opponents the Mavs could potentially face. Warriors, Jazz, Nuggets, possibly Minnesota, possibly the Grizzlies not out of play. We'll talk about all those teams and how they're going to be different than the Clippers teams the Mavs have played the last 2 years next. But before we do, let me tell you about NBA Top Shot. NBA Top Shot is the officially licensed NFT of the NBA. Connect with a community of hundreds of thousands of NBA fans as a natural progression of fantasy sports, a way to upgrade your experience as an NBA fan. They offer a whole bunch of stuff. Trading cards. You got the stock market where you can buy and sell cards. You can put them up there. Some people like this, there's a certain moment that they want, and so they'll pay more for it, and you can put it up there. There's bidding wars, all kinds of stuff. Fantasy sports with these as well, and they have a loyalty program. They actually flew a couple of collectors out to Game 5 of the NBA Finals because these collectors had so many Suns moments in their packs. There's all kinds of different things you can do with NBA Top Shot. I opened a pack today, and I got a Dennis Smith Jr. reverse layup from Portland, and I was like, oh, dang, Dennis. I love Dennis. I thought Dennis was great. I love talking to him, and I thought I hoped a lot for his career, but it was great to see a Dennis moment in my Top Shot pack. I also got a Jalen Green moment. Got a lot of different. The one I was disappointed in though. I got a Mason Plumlee pass. Oh, I was like, come. That's what I got in my. Now it was a nice outlet pass. Two-handed chest pass out to Miles Bridges, who did a windmill dunk, and so I was like, I'm just going to think that this is the windmill dunk from Miles Bridges. That's what I'm going to think of this moment. But if you want to get in on it, go check it out. NBA Top Shot is the future of being an NBA fan. Own officially licensed rare NFTs of the greatest moments from NBA history. Sign up today at lockedon.nbatopshot.com. That's the URL, lockedon.nbatopshot.com. I also want to tell you about Built Bar. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're delicious. I don't know if you've ever tried one, SJ, but they're awesome. I eat one every day. It's that time of year again where you're like, got to start looking better. Maybe going to the beach, Maybe you've had spring break. Maybe you're about to have it. Summer break is coming. You need a new snack. That new snack is Built Bar. Go check it out. Use the promo code LOCKED15. Get 15% off your entire order right now. They have a bar called Brownie Batter Puffs. The puffs have marshmallow in the middle, so it's real chocolate on the outside, the brownie batter like flavoring, and then you have the marshmallow in the middle. That's going to be delicious. Go check it out. And they're good for you. 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, only 7 grams of sugar in that Brownie Batter Puffs bar. Check it out at built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. All right, SJ, we've been talking about how the Mavs are different this year going into the playoffs, and there's a bunch of other things that we could have talked about. The coaching, Tim Hardaway Jr.'s out. We mentioned him on the show before, but I want to focus on the opponents, who the Mavs are going to play, because the last 2 years, they've been going up against this Clippers team with both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Like, it's just not, like, that team does not exist anymore, right? The way that it is. And even though, did Terrence Mann say the other day, like, we're going to get some guys back soon?
I think Paul George just got cleared for practice. And Norman Powell's doing some contact work. So yeah, they're getting reinforcements.
Cool with Norman Powell. But yeah, Paul George coming back is notable. But anyway, the Mavs will not play that team. They're just too far out of it, at least in the first round. There's no way that they'll face that team. And so now here are the opponents: the Warriors, the Jazz, the Nuggets, Minnesota, and the Grizzlies. The most likely team is the Utah Jazz. The Mavs are tied with them right now in the standings. They're in the 4-5. There's a possibility the Mavs could move up and get home court advantage. But what are your thoughts heading into a matchup with the Utah Jazz compared to last year playing against that Clippers team where Kawhi Leonard had to have one of the games of his life in order to beat them?
Yes. So as you know, people may know, my slogan right now is I want the Mormons, because I want the Utah Jazz in the playoffs. Just because
so does Isaac. Isaac wants them so bad.
I want them so bad, just because I think there's a lot there. Like, first of all, there's a lot of symbolism. I mean, it was before my time, but that's when, that's how Dirk got his first series win, win against the Utah. So I would like Luka to get that moment too, his first series win against the Utah team that is actually kind of like, the core is, old, meaning not their players, but just, they've been playing together, for a couple seasons. Hasn't really worked the way they wanted it to. And they don't really like each other. They just don't. So I just think it's about to implode. And I would love for us to be the ones that just, put that final nail in the coffin to just kind of end the core, blow up the whole core. Like, that just sounds so chaotic and lovely to me. So I would want us to face them, and they're different from the Clippers team because they don't have a Kawhi Leonard. There's no Kawhi to bail them out. And while Donovan Mitchell is a very, very, very good playoff performer, he's a playoff riser, so he gets better in the playoffs. We've seen it pretty much every single season from him. So we can't count him out, but Luka is better.
That's all. Yeah. That's it. Let's end the pod. That's it. Luka better. That's the analysis.
He's better. Yeah. And to me, having the best player in the series, especially when your teams are close, we're 4-5 seed,
same record.
Same record. Like, we're close. The matchup is close. So to me, having the best player in the series, that matters in that. And last year, you can talk about who outplayed who between Luka and Kawhi, but it was a conversation. Like, it wasn't a legit, like, you can go both ways, but a lot of people may lean Kawhi. But in this series, I don't think, unless Luka just something happens to him or something, I just don't think it will be such a conversation about who's better between Luka and Donovan Mitchell. With all due respect.
I can tell there's no respect there, but that's okay.
Yeah. He's creeping on my list because he was being very disrespectful after that last game. So I'm watching him. But yeah.
Just look at the difference in the defenders on these teams. So
yes.
Like the Clippers team that played in the playoffs last year against the Mavs. Let's see. Let's just go with that game 7. This is the lineup that played. You had obviously Paul George, great defender, right? Kawhi Leonard, all-time defender, like one like best defensive. What is the most valuable? What's the defensive player of the year award? My brain just completely blanked on that word. Defensive player of the year award winner, best defensive player in the NBA. Nick Batum, really good defensive player. Like those three wing defenders are maybe the strongest we've seen as three wing defenders on one team to play in a long time. You know, coming off the bench, Terrence Mann played some pretty good defense. Marcus Morris, not like terrible on defense. Those are the lineups that they were throwing at the Mavs. Now, if you look at this Jazz team, here's their wing defenders: Royce O'Neal, Bojan Bogdanovic. Both of them solid, but not like above average defenders. Like Clarkson, Rudy Gay, Daniel House is probably going to play some minutes now. Donovan Mitchell, even Mike Conley is another guard. Like that's the line. I mean, and then the switches on Rudy Gobert, right? It's kind of just going to be on Rudy Gobert the same way that it was in that last regular season game, and that's so different than what the Mavs have faced in the past. That think about what Luka did before and now what Luka could do in the playoffs against a team like that. And Luka rises up. Like I know he was trying in those Jazz games and things, but he rises up in the playoffs, and it's just going to be different against that team. The team that is kind of like sneakily could be the Mavs opponent is the Warriors, right? That's like kind of the second most likely opponent right now for the Mavs is this Warriors team. They're getting Steph Curry back soon. You know, Clay and Draymond have been they've both been back for a little bit. They've been trying to work themselves in. What do you think about this Warriors team?
I will be so upset if they fall to 4 or we stay at 5 or something, and we have to face them because it's just bad luck to have, to see, because I know the Warriors are slipping, but they're still contenders, like, healthy, if Steph's actually coming back and if he's going to be fine, I'm sure Clay is not going to be that Clay, at least not this season. Even if they make a deep playoff run, I don't think we'll see him be at the level he was at before this season, but still, he can still produce. It's not like he's hurting or he will hurt at that point. But it just would be bad luck to see contenders, the first 3 years in your playoffs. And I think the Warriors team, they're not as I think the fact that they're not as daunting as they were in the beginning of the season when they were just mowing through everyone.
Yeah.
But still, the matchup, if we're seeing, a kind of bad, I know it's a different group, but it's relatively the same core. So we're seeing a kind of battle tested group with guys that are kind of finicky in like Jordan Poole and Wiggins, where they can just
finicky is a good word for Wiggins.
Yeah, but they can randomly go for 40, in like a game 4. And you're like, are you serious? So I just think they're a team that, especially defensively, that's another piece, they're a tough team if they're locked in defensively. And I know they don't have anything for Luka. Luka's giving them problems, throughout his career. Luka shoots like a splash brother against them for some reason. He likes that matchup, in terms of his shooting. But still, I just to see Steph Curry, and that's another situation where I'm like, we probably won't have the unquestioned best player in the series. I know we've defended Steph well, but still, that's Steph Curry. And I don't know how you feel about Steph or Luka. I think Luka has been better than him for large stretches of this season, but that is still a 3-time champion. I think we still have to give him that kind of respect. So I would not like to see that matchup, actually. If they're the Warriors offense, the motion offense, if we're locked in, I don't know how well we can defend that, because we do have a couple weak off-ball defenders that you can target. I won't say any names, but there are a couple. With one of them likely not playing, we don't have to worry about that. But there's others that you may need to worry about in terms of just how they play. So we'll have to see if that's the matchup. I won't rule us out, obviously, but I won't feel as comfortable as if we say we're playing the Mormons. So yeah.
Curry has not played well against Mavs this year. So if you're listening are a Mavs fan and you've only watched Mavs games this year, which understandable. Mavs have played 4 games against them. The Mavs are 3-1 against the Warriors this year. They've won the season series, and Curry is averaging 20 points, shooting 38% from the field, 29% from 3, just taking 3 free throws a game. He is averaging like 8 assists, a couple of turnovers. but he's only his plus minus is only a 2.8 overall. So he's not been like really, really great against the Mavs this year. So you forget maybe if you've just watched him against the Mavs that he's still really, really good. He can go off in games. And when he starts going off, your defense just feels like you can't do anything, right? The way the Mavs made the Rockets feel on defense the other night when they were just like, oh, you can't do anything. That's the way your defense feels playing Steph Curry when he gets hot, and he can get hot. And I don't know if a Donovan Mitchell does the same. Like, yeah, he's had 50-point playoff games before, and yeah, you can feel, he can feel unguardable too at times, but it's not the same as a Steph Curry. And yeah, that would be interesting. A lot would be on Wiggins' shoulders, I think, Poole's shoulders. Between their wing defenders with Wiggins and Gary Payton and Kuminga, I guess. How much can they trust them? Otto Porter, I guess. Draymond, obviously, that defense would be asked to do a lot. This matchup is interesting. I hope it doesn't happen too. I'd much rather have the Jazz, but it's possible. This Warriors team is just like in shambles right now. They're all over the place because they're coming back from injuries, and some of it's no fault of their own. But they don't play well when everybody's together, and then when they are missing guys, they play better. It's just so weird how this team is working right now.
It's Clay's fault.
If you ask Warriors fans, it's all Kerr's fault. Everything is on Kerr.
Oh yeah.
Rapid fire the last couple. The Nuggets, Mavs most likely won't play them, but it's just kind of, man, the Mavs have absolutely no answer for Jokic, and it would take I think Jamal Murray's coming back soon at some point. If he could just get hot just shooting threes, then maybe that's a team that the Mavs would not want to face at all. And they have some wing defender. Aaron Gordon against Luka is a really, really good defender against him.
Yep. So, the Nuggets, like I said, another situation where best player in the series kind of, up for grabs in that sense. But, Jokic, it'll be tough to contain him. And, he's going to dominate, and there's going to be the threat to double, and, he's going to kill a double team. So it's just, I would not like to see that matchup either if they're not getting like a Jamal Murray or an MPJ back. If it's just this team as it is, Jokic is great, but I think we can take them. Like if it's this Nuggets team as it is. But if they're getting their reinforcements back, then I'd be hesitant to say I like that matchup.
Minnesota and the Grizzlies, they're both kind of like far off. A lot of things would have to happen for those two teams, but there you go. That's how the Mavs are different heading into the playoffs this year. There's a lot of different opportunities and different options the Mavs have. We got to play out the rest of the season. SJ, thanks so much for joining me today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. Tomorrow, Isaac will have you covered for the other Timberwolves game that has less stakes than before since the Mavs beat them. But if they beat them again, then they just put themselves out of playoff or a play-in opportunity at all. So that would be an incredible win. So Isaac will have you covered on that game. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. Peace out. Boom.